Hello there and welcome. I'm Ole Brygger, and if you're new here, I really hope I'll earn your subscription today. This is the second video where I will paint one of the factions from the Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game. And today I'm going to paint the Tower faction. Last time I painted the Necropolis, and you can watch the video up here. We have two heroes, we have a castle, and we have 7 creatures from this faction. In the last Necropolis video I didn't show how I primed it, and there has been a couple of reactions to that, and this time I will actually show from the bottom up how I primed these miniatures. So we better get started. Throughout this whole video I will only use Army Painter products, and we will start using my airbrush and the Army Painter matte black and spray it from below so I can darken all the shadows of the model. After the black is dry, I will use this matte gray and spray it from the top to make a centerful highlight. When you're using this technique, it will give you a very good overview of how the light will hit this miniature. And to give it a final highlight, I will use this matte white. This is just a tiny bit of spray of the highest point of the miniature. And this is just to enhance the effect of where the light is hitting the miniature from a light source. Now, I am using an airbrush and not everyone has an airbrush, but you can do this with rattle cans. You just need a black, gray and a white. All the paint is now dry, and I found this old makeup brush. It is nice and soft, and then I have a piece of cloth and my dry palette. I'll use some matte white, and now it's time to dry brush everything on the model. I'll just pour up a drop in my dry palette, dip the brush, and I will just put a tiny bit of paint, and then I will almost wipe everything off in my cloth, and finally on the piece of work paper I have underneath. I will gently just wipe the brush over the model and set off the paint, and you can see it will highlight all the details very slowly. But you can always add more paint, but you can't remove it. It's very difficult to remove. You can do it, but it's very difficult. And if you overdo this dry brushing, it will give the model a chalky look. Dry brushing the model with whites will enhance all the details. And I am going to use some speed paints for base coating all these models later. And then it is all prepared and makes the job a lot easier when using a speed paint. You can also use contrast paint or express paints for that, but I'm using the Army Painter's speed paints. This is the home of the Tower faction. I will start using some speed paints for all the blue roofs, and I will use the tidal wave. Tower is a good alignment town. They represent the alchemist and wizard hero classes. Wizards and alchemists study their arcane craft in towers. Tower population are comprised of creatures bound into the service of a powerful magic, made on the spot or allied with the town through ancient pacts. Tower armies have uniformly good morale and some of the best ranged attack units available. To make some more distinct shadows in the bottom of the building, I will use this dark tone mixed with some wash medium. This is to thin it down and make it slightly lighter. And for the staircase, I will use some unthinned dark tone. And the same thing goes for all the tower walls. To get a better grip on the model, I use these wooden dowels. This will enhance my stability when painting details. I will attach it using a double adhesive pad. I use a brigade gray to highlight all the stonework and around the windows. And for all the woodwork below the roofs and the crenellations, I will use this bootstrap brown. I missed a couple of spots on the roofs, so I will use this crystal blue to make up for my mistakes. And to give it some final highlights, I will use this Arctic gem just to give it the final touch. I actually managed to use only 6 colors and a wash thinner just to come up with this result. And I think it turned out pretty good. Let's start with the lowest level creature, the Gremlin. Or, as we are going to paint it, as the Master Gremlin. I am using the Army Painter Fanatics, and they come in flexible triads. But I'm not gonna use all 6 colors to make the skin color for this Gremlin. I'll probably only use 2, maybe 3 of them. And I think I will select these 3. I didn't have a speed paint that color matched this, otherwise I would have used that, definitely. But this is also a challenging process to build up some skin color, so why not try out this Warpaint Fanatics triad system. I'll start with the darkest one and build it up to the lightest. But I have the perfect speed paint for his cloak or his clothing, hat and so on, and this is the magic blue speed paint. Gremlins are the lowest level creature of the Tower faction. They are hard-working creatures enslaved into the Tower faction, and they are locked up to their ball and chain. But the elite creatures, called Master Gremlins, are released from this ball and chain and can use it as a ranged weapon. For his boots, I'll also use a speed paint. This is the Fire Drake. It has a nice brown color. And I'll also use it on the handle for his ball and chain. Darkest color of the skin tone is now dry, and I can use this for the mid-tones. To base color his belt, I'll use this Baron Dune. And I will also use it on his hair and the stars on his neck plate. And some pure red for some tiny dots in his eyes. Some Brigade Grey to highlight his hair. To give the skin a final touch of highlights, I will use this mossy green. Well, we are almost getting there, but we still need a few more things. I think the belt needed a bit more highlighting, so I decided to use this ice yellow to refine the belt. I also wanted to put some highlights on the boots, so I used this Command Khaki for that. The base, I will use some Gravelord Grey, also a speed paint. And finally we need some metallics, some gun metal for the ball and chain. And finally a dark tone wash, just to give the metal a bit darker look. And while we're using the washes, why not use a soft tone wash for the belt and his hair. I'll also use the Brigade Grey to highlight all the stonework on the base. And now this little Master Gremlin is ready to throw his ball and chain against his enemies. Let's have a look at the gargoyles. we have the stone gargoyles, but what we are going to have our focus on is the obsidian gargoyle. To give it a black purplish look, I used the speed paint Grim Black and Pastel Lavender. I will mix them 50-50. The obsidian gargoyles and the stone gargoyles are the second level creatures of the Tower faction. They are demon-formed statues animated for use as troops. They attack with ranking claws and they have a flying ability, so they won't be penalized by obstacles. They are a non-living creature and vampires can't drain life from them. The only advantage the obsidian gargoyle has over the stone gargoyle is they have a bit better attack and defense, and then they are a bit faster, so it's not as much as an improvement to upgrade, but still better than the stone gargoyle. I actually forgot to show you that I thinned it down with a drop of speed paint medium just to lighten the tone of the Grim Black and the Pastel Lavender. We also need a red dot for his eyes, and for that I'll use the pure red. I'll make some highlights with the company grade, primarily around the face and the mouth. And I will hit the base with some Gravelord Grey. I really love this color for use on bases because it's almost gray, but it has a brownish tint to it, and if you just highlight it with a light gray or brown color, it looks awesome. And now this gargoyle is done and ready to enter the armies of the Tower faction. This is the fastest paint job I have done yet. The total paint time without the drying time was about 10 minutes. Golems. We have stone golems and iron golems. And this guy here will be painted as an iron golem. First I'll dry brush the whole miniature with this gunmetal. And I think we can manage to paint this golem even faster than the gargoyle. And use less colors. Stone golems and iron golems are the level 3 creatures of Tower. They are recruited from the Golem factory. Both stone golems and iron golems, along with the gold golems and diamond golems, can be recruited from the Golem factory in the adventure map. Stone and iron golems are built and animated through a process involving both precise craftsmanship and complex magic. They are strong and durable combatants. Stone golems take half damage from spell attacks, while iron golems take only a quarter of such kind of damage. So these guys are very magic resistant. I thought about giving these golems an rust tone wash, but I decided to use the light tone, and I think it came out pretty good. I'll just soak the light tone all over the model. I had the model drying for half an hour before I went back to the gunmetal and gave it another dry brush. And some Gravelord Grey for the base. And this time I only used 7 minutes with the brush on the model. And only 3 colors. And I think this iron golem turned out pretty good. And now he's ready to enter the army of the Tower faction. Mages. We have the mage and the archmage. And this time it's not just about speed, it's also about speed paint. I will start painting his cape with this slaughter red. Magi and archmagi, or mages, are level 4 creatures of the Tower faction. They can be recruited from the Mage Tower. They are both ranged units and they don't have melee attack penalties, so they are good at close combat and ranged attack. These mages are actually pretty awesome. They will also boost your hero, so mana cost will be 2 less points. The Archmage has slightly better attack and defense compared to the ordinary mage. I'll use some Fire Drake speed paint on all the wood in his staff. And this jasper skin will be the base color of his face, hands and arms. Company gray to highlight his beard, hair and eyebrows. And with this shamrock green, I will show you the path to my rabbit hole. It turned out to look almost great with this speed paint, but I start to mess up things, but we will get back to that. Some greedy gold metallic paint for his staff and all the lines on his clothing. And then I started that nasty path down the rabbit hole of making this magical effect. I used some neon glow, and this is a UV fluorescent color. And it wasn't good enough for me, so I tried with some lighter and brighter yellows, and it just kept going to get worse and worse. It actually looked okay with only the shamrock green. And this warped yellow, it didn't do anything good either. This lens flare glow and the neon yellow from the Air series, I think they're almost the same color, but I thought maybe I could give that a try. And while those neon color were drying up, I could use this tourmaline skin to make some highlights on his face. And back to that magical effect, I thought maybe some green tones. I tried a light and a dark green tone, if I could make anything work. And then I started to give up. This is not getting better. I found a matte white and painted everything over on the magical effect and thought, okay, I better start over on this and try a new angle. Let's remove all the colors I don't need. The yellow, they have to go. And I will keep this data system glow. And the shamrock green, yeah, it gotta go too. The data system glow is a fluorescent paint, and I will just paint it directly over the white. And this was what I should have done from the beginning. Matte white and data system glow will turn out to be this magical effect, and I think it turned out pretty good. I like it a lot. Another magical creature is the Genie. Now we are going to have the focus on the Master Genie. And genies are blue, and they're also magical creatures, so let's start with this magic blue speed paint. I will almost base coat the whole model with this speed paint. Slaughter red speed paint for the vest and his hat. Genies and Master Genies are the level 5 creatures of the Tower faction. They attack with a shocking grasp that does solid damage to all opponents, and some creatures they hate is actually hit by 150% damage. Master Genies are also spellcasters and can cast spells 3 times during a battle. I'll use some bright gold metallic paint on his wristband and on all the lining of his vest. To make some highlights, I will use this Arctic gem, and I will just dry brush all the highlights on with this color. And some more power to the highlights, a bright sapphire, and it will go on as before with a dry brush. And then we have this metallic effect paint. It's from the old Warpaint series, and I don't know if you can still get it, but I think maybe someone will have something in stock. But it's a very cool color. It's like metallic flakes in a clear resin. I use it for frosting effects or, like here, magical effects. And I just apply it with a dry brush. And for the eyes, I will use this warp yellow, just a tiny drop in each eye. And now this Master Genie is ready to join the armies of the faction Tower. Nagas and Naga Queens, the 6th level creature of the Tower faction. And I'm going to paint it as a Naga Queen. And for the snake part of the body, I'm going to use this grim black. And for the upper body, I will mix 2 speed paints, the holy white and the pastel lavender. However, this didn't give the effect that I really wanted, so I had to try something else. I'll use the company gray, ash gray, and diabolic plum. I will mix up these colors and build up the layering for some skin color. And I think this worked a lot better for me. And I'll also use the ash gray as a highlight on the lower snake body. The Naga Queen is wearing a black vest, and for that I'm actually going to use a matte black. But I wanted to have a shiny effect, so I used this gloss varnish on top of the matte black to make it shine a bit more. And for most of the swords I will use this gun metal, but I will also use this cobalt metal, which has a more magical look. It has a blue tint to it. I really love this color. She is using different kinds of swords, so I think the variation between the metallics is okay. She probably stole them from all her victims. And I'll use this bright gold for the guards on the swords and her crown and other elements. And for some of the other guards, I will use this true brass. And this color is also good to make the gold parts more shiny and use it as a highlight. Dark emerald is also one of the metallic colors, and it is a silver with a green tint. I'll use this for minor decorations on her crown and on the swords. And I will use the gemstone red for some of the other decorations like the crown and the pommels on the swords. And for the hilts on the swords, I will use this hardened leather and the fire drake speed paints. And this pure red will be used for multiple parts. There's some decoration on the swords, her eyes, and then we are going to make some freehand decorations on the snake tail. And finally some Gravelord Grey for the base. I used a ton of different colors on this miniature, and that was a lot of work. I spent almost 3 hours painting this, even though you only spent the last 3 minutes watching this. But I think the result turned out pretty good. And now this Naga Queen is ready to enter the armies of the faction Tower. Giants and Titans. The largest level 7 creature of the faction Tower. We are going to paint the Titan. Start with this castle grey for the skin. And to give his skin a metallic look, I will use this gun metal. I'll just dry brush it on so we still can see the castle grey, or the grey castle as it's called, to be correct. And to give it some more depth, I will use this soft tone on all the skin, so you can still see the metallics shine through. And then I will paint on some highlights using the grey castle again. And to finalize the skin, I will use the gun metal again with a dry brush. And now to paint the armor with this bright gold. Giants and Titans are the level 7 creatures of Tower. They are recruited from the Cloud Temple. Giants and Titans are immune to spell affecting the mind. Titans do 150 damage to black dragons. Can hurl lightning bolts in a ranged attack and suffer no penalty for a hand-to-hand attack, making them the most powerful ranged attack units in the game. I will use some Slaughter Red speed paint for the Mohawk plume. To put some more depth into the armor, I will use this light tone all over the gold painted pieces. The washes always take a bit longer to dry, so while it dries up, I will use this Gravelord Grey on the base. Now this gold armor have to be shiny, so I will dry brush this true brash to make some more highlight to the armor. And some Arctic gem for the eyes. This will give it a nice cool look. And I will use the same color on his lightning bolt swords. To put some more sparkle into his eyes, I will just put a tiny drop matte white. And then I will use the matte white to make some freehand lightning on his lightning bolt swords. I have this fluorescent effect paint called Plasma Coil Glow, and it will light up under UV light. I want to use my airbrush to enhance the effect, but I could have used a brush, but I think this would make it look a bit more cooler. I'll also use this Blood Callus and this Raging Roe to highlight the mohawk. And finally back to the Castle Grey to dry brush it on the base to highlight the rocks. And now this Titan is ready to see some action on the battle board. We also have two miniature heroes, and they represent two of the Might heroes, Luna and Josephine, and the Magic heroes, Drakon and Solmir. Both of these heroes took me a very long time to paint. I really wanted to spend some time on those details because I think these miniatures are very awesome. But this video is getting very long. I'll start using some bony matter for the horse, but the hero on the horse is almost like the Magi, so he will be painted with the red and the gold like I painted the Magi miniature. So I will just focus on some of the details on the horse. For the clothing on the horse, I used the Hive Dweller Purple. This is also a speed paint. And some Shactual Brown for the mane and the tail and hooves on the horse. For the hero's boots, I will use the speed paint Dusk Red. And the hardened leather for the harnesses on the horse. Pallid Bone speed paint for the hero's pants. And some worn stone for the horse's eyes. I rarely use a pure white for the eyes, I always use some kind of off-white or grey. For the hero's skin, I'll use the Moonstone skin. This is the Fanatic Paints range called Rose Skin Tones. I'll also give this hero some blue eyes with the Arctic gem. And a tiny black dot for the pupil. And another black dot for the eyes of the horse. And now to some metallics. The bright gold, yeah, as I said before, for the cape of the hero and some of the decorations on the horse. And some gunmetal on all the tiny metal parts like rings on the harnesses and of course the spike of the flag. And now this hero is ready for the table. I didn't even paint the flag, I just left it with the primer and the white dry brush because this faction color is white. I really love this hero model, and I will definitely use this if I'm ever going to play Solmir or Lona. And I want this horse to be white, but to give it a good base color I will use this Pallid Bone. And of course some magic blue for the Genie hero. And the same color is used for all the magic that surround this horse and Genie. Slaughter red for his pants and his hat. I'll use the Bony Matter speed paint for the mane and the tail of the horse, because this Pallid Bone is a bit too bright. I forgot to film it, but I used the Gravelord Grey for the base. I'll use this Brigade Grey for the white in the horse's eyes and for the Genie hero itself. Now this horse is going to end up being white, but I will use this dusty skull to build up the highlights very slowly. And this one is for the horse's tongue. And it's a speed paint called Crimson Dragon. Now I will build up some lightning effects in the blue magic. I thinned down a matte white with very much water, so it will just run into the crevices of the model. Then I will bring out my airbrush again with some plasma coil glow. And then we can start making the horse more white. I will use this Great Hall Grey to lighten up the surface and the highest point of the horse. And then I will step it up a notch with the Brain Matter Beige. And it's time to bring back in the bright gold for some of the details. It's primarily the braces and a couple of dots on his hat. And this is pretty much it. This hero is ready to enter the battlefield with his army and win some rounds. And here they are. We just need one more thing. Painting the rims with a company gray. I have this rule for myself. When I paint miniatures, the rim is always the last thing I paint a miniature, because that indicates that this is the end of the paint job, and I don't want to put any more color to the miniature. And I'm finally done painting all these tower faction creatures and heroes and their town. I really enjoyed painting these. It took longer than I actually expected, but it was a full pleasure all the way, even though I did some mistakes with this mage here. That happens when you paint miniatures, and it will probably also happen to you once in a while. Now, this is not my game. I don't own the game, and it's my friend, and I really appreciate that he allowed me to paint his miniatures, like the Necropolis faction and now the town faction. I have one more of his factions that I'm going to paint, and this faction is also one of my favorites. But I don't think it's enough. I actually bought the base game with one expansion. It was a set and it was the cheapest one, so I will get another set of tower faction. I won't paint them again, but and then I will also get another Necropolis faction. But I will get 2 more factions there, and I will make videos about painting them. It will be castle and dungeon, so I'm looking forward to do that. But I have one more faction that I borrowed from my friend that we're also going to paint. And who knows, maybe I will get my hands on a set or 2 more. I don't know yet, but let's have a closer look on how these turned out. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I really appreciate you all being here, and I hope I have earned your subscription if you already haven't subscribed. This was the second video of me painting some of the factions for the Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game. There will be another video. Yeah, as I told you before, there will actually be maybe 3 or 4, I don't know yet. I don't know when they will come out, but they will come out, and I hope you will stick around. Goodbye for now.